Well, here's a nightmare of an estate plan just ready to blow up in this poor daughter's face here, in her lap, if you will. So Leslie writes in from the Midwest. Hey, Josh, just found you on YouTube. Thank goodness. My sister and I have had the opportunity to sit down with my dad and his trust attorney and go through his trust. Thank goodness. She says it twice. We are not real happy as to what we found. He has 2 IRAs, not Roths, a home that's paid, and a farm that's paid, along with 3 life insurance policies. The investment guy that has his IRA, he likes, that my dad likes a lot, and has been doing well. Upon his demise, though, the trustees, what's called a successor trustee, would take over the IRAs from him. Well, he's dead, so they'll take it from you because you'd be the beneficiary, presumably, and would invest it as they see fit. And if my sister or myself needed to pull away funds from the trust, we have to go before the trustee and ask for it. Exactly right. And for that, they charge 1% a year. My dad agrees that's not good. And he's going to add my name to the deed on the farm and my sister's name to the home. You're sitting there talking to the attorney, and he's hearing this, and he's okay with it. Nuts. Is a life insurance in an irrevocable life insurance trust? I bet it is. I just okay. It was. Frank, I don't know. I hate to even say that. There's so many things that could be just a cluster, a Charlie Foxtrot. How do we protect all from probate? Going around the trust? We all agree, and I'm not sure who all is that you, the attorney, and you and your sister, that this is not my father's intent when he had this all set up in the 1990s. I advise that we should seek a good tax attorney. If you had a moment, I'd love for your advice. And she gives the age of her sister. So it sounds like her dad is probably in the halfway between the World War II and the Vietnam generation. I presume he's probably 75, maybe a little bit older. From the Midwest, and I know the town where he's from, and probably German heritage with a German focus on labor and work and all that stuff. So dad's probably salt of the earth guy. He listens. He trusts people implicitly. And so a couple things going on. For the love of the good Lord, why would you add your name? He add your name to the farm and your sister's name to the house. Why would the attorney who's sitting there presumably with you, because you said we got to sit down with your dad and the trust attorney, allow this to happen? It's freaking nuts, man. What happens when you add a name to a deed? Remember, a deed is the ownership. It's the title. Who owns this? When you add a name to the deed, what happens? I'm going to pause for a second. So think about that, my YouTube friends. Ready? I'll give you 5 seconds. Countdown. Care Bear countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so when you're adding a name to a deed, you are making a gift. All right, so your dad would be making a gift of half of the property, because presumably it'd be a joint tenants with rights of survivorship, to you. Now, that won't most likely be subject to gift tax, because the gift tax exemptions, lifetime gift tax exemptions are significant, like $11 million. I can't remember, so high. So we're going to assume there's no gift tax in this regard. I think that's a safe assumption. But what happens now? You are on the deed. What happens when your dad dies? All right, you've just lost half of the step up in basis. You've assumed the cost basis for half the property of what your dad had, which is flipping nuts. Nuts, all that. You're going to have to pay capital gain tax on whatever you sell, on your half of the property you inherited. All that to avoid probate. And there's other ways to avoid probate than just adding your name to the deed. In fact, probate in this case isn't the worst thing that ever happened. It's a pain. But to save yourself thousands and thousands and thousands of capital gain tax, just go to probate. Or you could put the home, this is what I don't understand too. Why is the home and the farm not in the trust to begin with? If it's a living trust, your dad is a trustee. He's called a grantor, and he's the trustee. He controls it, and he grants the asset to the trust. So he says, hey, I got this living trust. I'm going to retitle my real property into the trust. And now that avoids probate. And then it says literally why, because essentially you're pre-going to probate. I mean, it's got to go through probate probate. It's got to go to the titling agency of your county or whatever in order to get the ownership name to the trust. And you got to be careful there. Some states are stupid in terms of, oh, you're adding to the trust. And just you got to be careful. You want to talk to a tax person here, a tax attorney for sure. But anyway, at the end of the day, most states are fine. You add it to the trust, no big deal. Your dad's still the trustee. Your dad's a grantor. Everything's fine. In the trust document, it says explicitly, to the trustee, at my demise, this property goes to Leslie, this property goes to Barbara. There's no muss, no fuss, no foul, easy as pie. And then at his death avoids probate because he already went through the process of putting in the trust. I don't even think that's even that big of a deal, but I'll let you determine that, talking to a tax attorney. And then on top of that, you retain the step up in basis on the property. Just adding deed names to deeds, for the love of me. And the freaking trust attorney sitting right there, we heard your dad talking like that, crazy. All right, secondly, what's the deal with the life insurance stuff? Is it universal life? Is it whole life? Is it term? What is this? If it's universal life, is the life insurance actually going to be there when he dies? If he took it out a long time ago, which I presume he did, my inclination is probably not. I don't know if your dad smokes. I have no idea what his life expectancy is, but that's a problem, Leslie. You got to make sure that life insurance is there at his demise. And if it's universal life, and presumably it's not in the trust, or if it is, I don't know, but if it's in the trust, who's the trustee for that? It's not going to be your dad because it's an irrevocable life insurance trust. It doesn't go through his estate because he doesn't own it. And because he doesn't own it, he doesn't have control. So a trustee is the person who's responsible for overseeing that policy and making sure the policy is fully funded and will not expire before he does. I know there's a lot to go on here, but you got to understand what the life insurance is, because that life insurance could easily expire before he does. And if it does, that's not what his estate planning intended to happen. A lot of times people say, I want the life insurance to kick in to pay for the taxes that the IRA is going to have, which makes sense inherently. And also to give you, presumably you and your daughter, your sister, an immediate cash flow to allow the IRA to continue to grow under the old concept of stretch IRA, which I can almost tell you is going to be gone. So there's a lot going on in that. So here's one thing: if the trustee on an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust, allows that sucker to expire before your dad does, i.e., there is no life insurance at his death, you actually have a lawsuit against that trustee. You can say you neglected to see through this, and that's a big deal. And because it's no joke, this is no joke. All right. Lastly, what's happening? I don't know why your dad. I guess in the '90s. So what's that? 20 years ago. So you were, your sister looks like was in her early teens, and you were probably in your early 20s. I can see why he want a corporate trustee, to manage his IRAs at his demise in case he didn't want to give all the money to you right out of the gate. Well, now those days you don't need this. I don't know. Maybe you're going to sniff it up your nose. I don't know. I don't know what your situation is, but to have this go to a corporate trustee to manage it for 1% fee when his daughters are of well into adult and middle age, I just don't understand that at all. I don't know your relationship with your dad, but that's nuts in my opinion. I don't get it. So you'd have to say, look, do we actually need a corporate trustee? And the answer is, in my opinion, no. But I'll let you determine that. So got a lot going on here. Again, I'm stunned that your dad's trust attorney did not share this with you. Corporate trustees generally are not the way to go, without question, unless there's something going on, special needs. Again, he's worried about you sniffing up your nose or something like that, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. So I'd highly advise you to ask your dad, can we seek an updated trust here, an amendment to the trust, because things have changed. And you and your sister are now adults. You don't have to be protected from yourself for inheriting these assets. And on top of that, the rules are going to change too when it comes to inherited IRAs. I'm sure they set it up under the context of the stretch, but those days are coming to an end. So a lot going on, Leslie. You got to be on this like white on rice. This is big deal stuff. All right, we'll see you.